Live life well and fully, and waste nothing. Do not fear difficulty. Hard ground makes stronger roots. The only lasting peace is the peace within your own soul. All things have a right to grow. The blossom is brother to the weed. Never leave a wrong to ripen into evil or sorrow. Act with wisdom, but act. From the smallest blade of grass to the largest mountain, where life goes, so too should you. In my quest to find new playstyles in Guild Wars 2 World vs. World, I realized that the only legend stance I and most people never use on Revenant is the Ventari stance. And when you think about how hard it is to maneuver the tablet, the lack of stun breaks, and the lack of damage, it's not surprising. However, with the Renegade, you can camp inside the tablet and deal massive damage on the slightly overtuned Shortbow while preventing other projectile users from assaulting you inside the protective bubble of the tablet. While most Revenants prefer melee and mobility, Shortbow Renegades are very immobile, which can make use of the Ventari stance very well. And that's not all. You can win most 1 vs. 1s on this build, support your allies with healing, cleansing, and CC, and still have the Shiro stance for stun breaks and mobility. This is the Ventari Renegade build, and here is my full guide. Remember, if you like this video, give it a like, subscribe, and support me through the links in the description. So let's project ourselves into the world of the Ventari Revenant. The gear I use is full Celestial with Antitoxin runes. Whenever you cleanse a condition on this build, you will cleanse an extra condition, which helps you to avoid being locked down by conditions like chill, immobilize, cripple. However, there is a decent amount of cleanse on this build already, and you could run the Herald rune to give you protection. I take Doom and Battle Sigil on my bow because this is a single target oriented build, so I want a single target damage sigil, which Doom is really good at. But also this is a hybrid build, so the might generation from the Battle Sigil is great. On staff, I take Energy Cleansing for the usually defensive weapon set. You'll want the Roasted Bowl of Lotus Root because it reduces stun duration by 40% and gives some toughness. The traits are Salvation, Invocation, and Renegade. In Invocation, you'll gain Condition Cleanse on Legend Swap from Cleansing Channel, and you'll just gain a lot of Fury and Swiftness from the build just passively. So finally is Charged Mists. Charged Mist will give you 75 energy whenever you Legend Swap instead of 50 if you swap below 10 energy. This shouldn't be a problem to do because between all of the instant cast skills of the Renegade and the Ventari stance and the very high cost energy skills of Shiro stance, you can easily blow all your energy before you swap, even if you're stunned. In Salvation, you take Blinding Truths, which will blind nearby enemies when you cast your healing skill. This trait is actually busted because the blind has no internal cooldown, and the healing skill for Ventari has a 3-second cooldown. So you can just keep spamming the blind on the Ventari tablet, and it will blind near you regardless of whether the tablet is on you or not. Also, the trait is really busted right now because the blind is undodgeable, and that should absolutely be bug fixed. This really helps to peel melee classes off of you and gives you a ton of mitigation and even cover condies. Then there is Resilient Spirit, which will pulse barrier on you every 3 seconds depending on how many boons are on you, up to 5 boons. So we have Permanent Swiftness and Fury from the Invocation trait line. We have Vigor from Brutal Momentum, which is whenever you gain Fury. You have Might from the Renegade trait and from the Battle Sigils. And whenever you successfully dodge an attack, you will gain Resolution and Regeneration. So on average, you'll get about 4 to 5 boons at any given time. And that will average to about 1000 barrier every 3 seconds, which really trims away a lot of the poke damage you'll get. Then there's Unyielding Devotion, which grants you 15% damage reduction buff whenever you heal an ally. Because you have regeneration, the tablet is pulsing heals, you heal off of using energy. You can get a high uptime on this, which helps you to give even more mitigation to physical damage. Along with the blinds, barrier, and sustain of this build, and even the Condi cleanse, you actually become so tanky with this build. In Renegade, you just get piercing on the Shortbow and Vindication, which will give you might when gaining Callous Fervor, which is just whenever you critically hit or strike from their flanks. The Shortbow is a very overtuned weapon for how clunky it is. So the auto attack will just give bleed, and it's a very easy to land skill because it kind of just shoots straight at the target. There's no arc to it. Then you have Bloodbane Path. You have to have a target to cast this, but you can use it while moving in any direction, and it will shoot like a portal, and then the portal will reappear next to the target and then shoot at them. So it's really good for kiting because a lot of the clunky skills on the Shortbow don't allow you to use them while facing away from your target, but this does. So you usually want to use this and save it for when you are kiting. And then you have 7-shot, which does insane damage because if all 7 arrows hit, it'll give about 2.5k damage and then a really long 7 stack of torment, which really adds up the damage. You cannot cast the skill while looking away from your opponent, so you need to face them and it'll do a lot of damage. But they're also combo finisher projectiles, so it's really nice to use this through your Spirit Crush, which is another skill that you need to be facing the target when you start casting it, but then you can kite when it's already in motion. And yeah, this is a fire field, so you can shoot your 7-shot through the fire field and get even more burn. This will pulse burning and slow on it. and slow is a really strong condition for peeling for yourself. Usually when I'm kiting, I'll cast Spirit Crush in front of me so that I run into it slightly, and then my enemies have to chase me into it. And then from there, you can actually Scorch Razor them into it. And Scorch Razor is kind of clunky too, because you need a target and you need to be facing the target to use it, but it is a ground level kind of projectile that will knock down enemies in the path. But because it is kind of like a clunky skill, it's hard to land. So usually what I'll do is I'll detarget the person I'm attacking. I'll detarget and I'm kiting away like this. I'll start casting it and then I'll immediately turn around, and then you can basically, in a way, use the skill while not looking at them, so long as you face them again manually. And you can do some combos, like for example, if I'm being chased like this, I can use Spirit Crush in front of me, and then I will detarget and then turn around and use my Scorch Razor while they're in the Spirit Crush, and then I would 7-shot them in the Spirit Crush, and then I can continue to kite with Bloodbane Path. So the Shortbow is very clunky, but once you understand the flexibilities of these skills, you can get a lot of value out of it. Then on the staff, you just have Mender's Rebuke, which will give weakness and heal you. This is just nice for the sustain and peels. And then you obviously want this block, because it will blind enemies in front of you after the cast, and it will have a 2-second durational block, which is really strong. And then you have Renewing Wave, which cleanses 2 conditions on you, but with Antitoxin that'll be 3, and heal you for a decent amount. And then you have Surge of the Mist, which is a nice CC and evade. So you pretty much just use all of the staff skills for defensive purposes. And say, for example, this build is very weak to heavy melee power classes, so you want to be using staff to survive those moments where they're being really aggressive on you. And then when they run out of cooldowns, you can swap back to using Shortbow, and maybe even just use your Ventari tablet to give blind when they're near you as well. So the tablet is really good at giving blind. So what are the stance skills? So Ventari's tablet basically is your heal skill, which is a very low value heal skill, but because it is so flexible, it gives you healing over time, which can add up and give you a lot of the synergies of your traits. So generally what I want to do is I'm kiting and then I'll put the tablet on myself, but you got to remember that the blind is always on you. So the blind happens right here on that target, even though the tablet may not be in range of that person. So yeah, the blind uptime is really high, and you can just keep spamming the tablet. Also, you have Protective Solace, which is going to be a protective barrier that blocks projectiles. This is really good in World vs. World because you have so many classes that just spam projectiles from afar, and in outnumbered situations where you're often just getting run down by a longbow ranger, you can just kite with the tablet and keep moving the projectile field with you, and you'll be immune to those projectiles. So that's really good, and it only gives you 1 pip degen. So you can really have this up for a long time if you manage your energy well. Then you have Purifying Essence. This will cleanse conditions on nearby allies by the tablet. So it's not you, it's the tablet that needs to be nearby for the cleanse. So it'll cleanse where the tablet is. And it's instant cast. So you can do this while stunned, and a lot of the skills on the tablet are instant cast. Well, actually, all of them except the casting of, so when it goes away, you can cast the Ventari's tablet again, but you need to be, that has a cast time. So everything else can be used without a cast time, so you can use it while stunned. So even though you don't have any stun breaks, there is a lot of potential for you to counterplay people. So yeah, the cleansing will heal you for each condition removed. It'll remove 3 condies. So you want to make sure that the tablet is next to you, and it'll cleanse 4 because of the antitoxin. Then you have Natural Harmony, which is a very low cooldown, 20 energy, massive nuke heal for 2000 that will also give Alacrity. So that's pretty nice because it gives you all of your other cooldowns back faster, which even though Revenant really doesn't have issues with that, it can support your allies pretty nicely. And it is a little bit of a delay before it hits. So if you're like running around and you put the tablet on you and then you use the heal, you might run out of range before it finishes. So you usually want to cast the heal and then move it in range of you so that it heals you as soon as it gets in range and you don't have to stop moving. So timing that is pretty important. Finally, you have energy expulsion, which will have a delay on it, and the tablet will basically knock back enemies and it will summon these healing things on the ground, which you can run over to pick up and that'll heal you. It will also cleanse conditions on nearby allies at the spot of the explosion based on how much energy you remove. So it costs your entire energy bar to use it. This is really nice because at the end of every like stance swap that you want to do, you can just use energy expulsion because you're getting rid of all your energy anyways, because you want to get the synergy from the charge miss trait anyways. So you can always just use energy expulsion at the end of your Ventari rotation, and then once you lose all your energy, you're below 10, which allows you to gain 75 energy from the charge missed. So generally at the end of your Ventari, just use energy expulsion and it'll give you a lot of value from these things that you can pick up, as well as CC. Then while you're in Shiro stance, you have enchanted daggers, which is just a nice little lifesteal on your heal. It's pretty aggressive. And then you have riposting shadows. This is your only stun break in the build, so you do want to save energy while you're in Shiro stance to make sure that you can actually use it. And it's a nice little roll backwards that'll also give you fury, and it's great for mobility because other than your phase traversal and your Surge of the Mist, you really don't have that much movement. So phase traversal is really good for surviving in outnumbered situations because you have so many of these targets in world versus world where you can port to them. So it's really important that you enable show all enemy names, because then you can see the ambient creatures and you can phase traversal to them, which can help you to disengage. But also it allows this build to have a lot of kill potential on it because you're such a tanky build, and usually the issue with builds that are very tanky is that you can't secure kills because your target just decides, I'm going to leave. Well, Shiro stance prevents them from leaving because you can, on a 5-second cooldown, port to them and get quickness. So yeah, it's really dangerous. And impossible odds is just nice for getting a little bit more damage, but it's really not amazing on this build because it's not really a power build, more of a hybrid build. So you really want to be having more of the stun break usage on Shiro stance. But also you have Jade Winds, which is pretty nice because if you can land the 3-second stun and put them in your Spirit Crush while they're in that, they can take a lot of damage. So usually what I like to do is Spirit Crush, and then if they chase me into my Spirit Crush, I will Jade Winds them, and then yeah, they'll take a lot of damage. So the Renegade specific skills, Heroic Command will just give you a little bit of might for your Callous Fervor. It's really not amazing. If you really want to do like a burst and you're preparing for it, then it's possible, but really you don't need to do that because Vindication will already give you your might uptime. So I don't really like to use the F2 ever, but Citadel Bombardment is really good because the Vindication trait actually increases how much damage this does. It'll actually summon 15 projectiles, and you can use that to cleave from afar. They are projectiles, so they can be countered. So usually it's just better to use your Shortbow in those situations because you're going to get a lot more value off of the low cooldowns of Shortbow. But if you have a lot of energy to use, and say for example you are in the Ventari stance and you don't need any of the defense abilities, but you have a ton of energy, well then you can use the Citadel Bombardment and you can be more aggressive that way while you're in the Ventari stance. Also, you have Orders from Above, which will pulse Alacrity on you and nearby allies, and it's a instant cast, so it has no animation. You can use it while you're in another animation, and it is just really good for getting your energy below the threshold to get charge miss. And yeah, you just want to use this if you can expend that amount of energy. So I like to start out with the Protective Solace up, and that'll block any projectiles that anyone's going to be opening on me with. Then I can just use my Shortbow combos. When I'm ready to leave Ventari stance, I'll send my Elite in and it'll explode. Then I'll immediately go Shiro. From there I can use Jade Winds and Spirit Crush. If I want Alacrity, I can do that if I want to support my team. And I'll just use the Stun Break. I'll try to keep my energy at least 40% so I don't get, stunned and then die. And then when I'm about to leave Shiro, I'll try to use as much as I can. And then I'll swap back into the Ventari stance, and then that's pretty much it. You just keep supporting your allies, try to survive through your Shiro stance by keeping your stun breaks. And then when you're about to leave Ventari or leave Shiro, try to expend all of your energy. And then you've got a lot of energy to use when you swap in, and you have these really big power spikes. So yeah, that's pretty much how it plays. It can be hard to get used to controlling the Ventari's tablet while controlling your character at the same time, but when you get used to it and you kind of just put the tablet on yourself and then you don't really heal other people too much, you can support people, but you don't really need to because you can pretty much self-suffice with this build. But yeah, if you do play as a healer role, it's more of like a hybrid anyways, so you don't really need to dedicate yourself to healing. You can just support through giving boons to nearby allies, and if you really need to, the option is there to heal. But that is pretty much the build.